The S Models kit is beautiful. The photo etch parts are a real fiddler to work with.
So Robert brought some chocolates up here if you want a chocolate. And then I'm going to try to have the Lancia.
How many holes did you have to drill?
And with a new model on the table.
I typically modify the suspension so that just the bottom part of the suspension I can take off.
Yeah, I put everything on so that the tracks are true, the sag is right, that nothing's out of alignment. Because if they are, then I'll break it off and I'll do it all over again.
I should say it depends on the kit, because kits that have very little contact area for the road wheels, I will attach
the details on it, but I know it's just off a touch, right? So I'm going, okay, you know, where do I cut and sand where it's not noticeable? But then again, okay, then you have to paint it, and then, you know, try to do everything, you know, paint it back.
You don't have to glue them to the road wheel.
Yeah.
Like that's what I do with tools a lot, is I only glue them where they actually physically attached to the model, and then what I can do is I can shove paper in behind the...
But I noticed Mike Rinaldi does too.
You ever see that? Yeah, and it's like all of them, like say if there's any armor stuff like that, they all glue everything together. They make one solid model and then they paint it.
Do you lift up the model and look at underneath or anything? So you may not see, I mean, they may paint it, they may look great on TV or great in a picture.
Well, my Nigerian princess has told me that to do whatever, you know, as long as I keep saving money.
Hey, I got $7
billion
coming my way.
Only if it's from Nigeria.
Yeah, but what did that cost you? How many thousands to get that billions of dollars? I like watching on YouTube, like if you punch up 1/700 scale tutorial.
I put a well there, and then I discovered there's no well, because it's actually attached to the inside. So I sanded off the well, and then I scribed the panel lines. I got fixing it and stuff. This is about 2 things left.
Hey, how are you? Good, Brady. How are you?
How are you? Good, thank you.
You should have been finished by 3 to come down.
Oh, he said he was taking the day off.
Really?
That's what he told me. He said he was going to take the day off and come in here.
As you can see, this is like multimedia. So there's resin, there's photo etch, there's metal. I've done a whole bunch of work to the actual hull itself to create a texture. So it's an incredibly uneven model in terms of its makeup. So for that reason, I had no choice but to actually prime it. For example, this is a decal for the weld seam. So all this, I needed if nothing else, not only did I need an even surface for the paint to go on, but I also needed to know that all the things that I had done were in balance and looked right, and I hadn't gone too far one way or the other with some detail. And the only way you're going to get that is by priming. You can sort of see this has been primed, and I'm also starting to apply a darker shade. And I'm doing that darker shade for 2 reasons. And some of the keen-eyed among you can see the sort of blue color here. Well, that's actually what I would call reverse masking. So on the T34, there's a periscope, episcope up on the commander's cupola, and it's not. I mean, the model's right there, so you can imagine how big it is. It's not very big, and to try to paint that evenly by hand would just be, it's beyond me. I can't do it. And there's a product. If any of you guys have spent any time listening to figure painters or talked to figure painters, nobody paints a figure by just putting on a flesh color, because that would just, there's no depth to that, there's no life to it. So I believe the same thing applies when you're actually painting the model itself. So what I've done here is, I'm assuming that the bottom of the barrel, underneath the mantlet, certainly underneath the turret, is going to be naturally dark. So I've painted a dark color underneath it. Of course, we've run down the side. So I've pre-stained it, so the paint is already starting to build up. And by implication, I'm now shifting away from and you'll also notice that I've actually switched shades. So I've actually started to use like a lime yellowy color. And again, this is to create a visual impact and suggest that the model is bigger than it really is. The detail's starting to pop out. And one of the other things that I'm also doing here is I've not only used my airbrush, but I've also used a treble zero Winston Windsor Newton, thank you very much, Winston.
And then you get the hose. But if you want the hose really small, you can make little tiny ones that you can barely see. You can pass them around. They're that tiny, it's ridiculous. And what it is the guys who do radio control aircraft has push lines. They're tubes. They're polyethylene tubes. They won't fit on the big side. They do come in different sizes. I have a hard time getting the biggest ones. I have to sort of modify things. But they will fit in the extension pane today. Cold out. These you could get, and I only need that little bit, but of course, if you pull it really quick, you get a real tight, short one. And it just saves a lot of money. Shiny. Oops. And it'll break if it's not hot enough. A little hotter. And now I've got a cyano, depending on what kind of diameter I want, I just keep pulling it and watch the other end. And these are real cheap if you buy them in bulk. And somewhere I've got a bunch of these, I can't find them.
So the IMPS system, it's called sometimes an open system. It's not quite the Chicago or figure-based open system. The AMP system is based on a defined set of parameters. We judge based in categories. There's a 10-point scale, and everything is assigned points in various areas. So in other words, the 3 primary areas are construction, finish, and difficulty, and there are an X number of points to be given in each one of those. And at the end of it, you total up the score, and as the models get a particular score, they are awarded a medal or not, based on their score, and the score is related somewhat to their skill level as well. So we try not to judge the best model in any category. There's very few categories. There's only 14 total. The primary ones, there's only 5 or 6 categories where most of the models end up. So unlike an IPMS system, where there's a bunch of categories, the best one today in that category, the AMP system tries to assess models and the modeler, and you get an award based represents. You also can't win more than 1 medal in a category. Other than the first 2 categories where it's outlet, broken up, and outlet and access, each of the categories was also chosen so that there's a subtly different set of modeling skills that go along with each one, and so we don't try and pigeonhole everybody into the same series of categories and the same skills. So you can win a gold, silver, or bronze in each of the categories, but if you put 5 models into one category, well, you can only win one. And it's your best model with the highest score that is noticed. You won it for this.
So you can't win 5 gold. You can't win 5 golds.
In one category. If you have 5 models in 5 categories and they're all gold, you can get 5 golds. We are trying to recognize the work done, and you also have, on every shift of judges, you'll have 3 or 4 tables of 4 people judging. Like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, does each judge a particular aspect of the model?
No, every judge looks at the entire package, all the judging criteria, and you try and work through all the models that you're giving up. At an AMPS convention where you have guys that have done this a bunch of times before, we try and get it down to 6 minutes a model. And you go through the 10 areas, the 10 points, the 6 areas, 7 areas, in 6 minutes, and you can do a quick scores, you're considering the things you're seeing. Individuals around the table are all looking and talking about what they're seeing, what they're looking at, and talking about this. And within the end of 6 or 8 minutes, you should have a model judged, the scores all totted up. And then one of the key things about the AMP system. So the table captain is the one that takes the sheet off. He's the main writer of things fills out the sheet. Shut up. So what he does is he takes the sheet out from under the model and says, right, so what we have here is he looks first down at the, which I didn't fill in yet.
Make sure you can read first and read it
Yeah,
right.
I know. I get to read it out because I know what I just wrote.
You're not advanced.
I've got an advanced case of something. So
Don't we all?
Penicillin can cure that.
not anymore. Munch resistant. So it says, all right, we've got an advanced modeler. We've got a Tamiya Lee.
Yeah.
It's a Lee Mark 1, so it's probably Commonwealth. And you look, it's in category 2, some extra lights, and a couple of pen lights as well.
It's a big
And
bolt
here you
going
go.
into the holes to the bottom basically. Right?
Ooh, didn't see that. That's how I. So you look through the model, you say, right, well, I look at that, I like this, and judge it. What do you think? You're looking for basic hull work and basic hull and body work.
So you're looking for seams.
Yeah.
Looking for things like
gaps.
Basic fit.
Yeah.
You're not looking at the running gear or the drivetrain. You're looking at the basic hull and body work.
Yeah, make sure there's no gaps.
Seams,
or anything.
gaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No gaps where there shouldn't be. Make sure there is gaps where there should be. Look for things like the gun barrel is straight.
Quickly, come on, someone else sit down and help. This is a 2 or 3 person job.
Take my glasses.
Okay, go ahead.
Did you use bare metal foil for that seam on that side that I see?
Could be. Yes, it is. It's okay. You just keep it down. That's okay. This tends to be a noisy process as well because people are all talking just like we are now. So that's okay.
So it's already there. You also
2 points and then 1.5 point each. You see anything online? You see anything you really think?
When you look at a real thing, a real piece of
So, okay.
No, that's a separate category.
Yeah, that's something
That's a
else.
separate
At this
class.
point, it just says it was done. Okay, so here you're looking to see anything major about what I got done there, so we'll give you 2 kind of marks for that. Hull and chassis detailing. Now, this is where you're talking about extra things that are added on. Like, it also counts for tools, stowage, anything like that.
That tank is in the standard fit.
It is on those, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm saying you put that on. See?
Things that's not square.
It's Canadian.
It's actually British. So, okay, let's say, but let's say that this stowage box, yeah, you may have scratched, but didn't do a great job of lifting it over the top, so let's say 0.5 for that. Okay, now you go to,
However,
that's your construction.
what you can also do, if you know, which has a big seam all the way through it, and you can't see that seam, and so that's actually a plus.
Right, so that may, if I had a little small seam someplace that you could see, and that was a really good, you might say,
One negates the
I
other.
gotta say, that gets a little because
you have to
know
do,
that kid.
No, but that's right. If
That's
you
what
know
judging
it,
is about.
if you don't know
I
it,
know,
then
but-
you're not going to do anything about
Yeah,
it.
but if
But
it
that's
says,
why
the
one of the
manufacturer says X and you know X is notoriously
Right.
bad.
Yeah.
That's where.
Okay, but that's also why what a lot of people do is they don't just write out what they have there. They attach things to it, and they attach a lot of pictures showing what they did during the construction, so they can point out what they had to fix.
yeah, like when I get,
A piece of history here. It's one of the
Sidewalk.
I'm tongue-tied here.
Yeah,
It's a cobblestone from the Warsaw Ghetto, from Poland. So it's an actual piece of history. It's really something to see and to hold. Don't forget Sunday night, or Sunday, is the Hamilton show. I'm sure none of you are going, except for me. But, so I won't see you there, and I'll be buying everything, I'm sure. And nice to see,
We have while these guys are doing the tickets here,